The brass plate on the wireless console still bore the Kaiserliche Marine crest, though it was scorched and half buried in sand. Commander Hayato Ishikawa stared at it without expression as the Pacific sun beat down, his coat heavy with salt and silence. They'd found the abandoned German station 3 days ago, nestled between the jagged cliffs of a forgotten Micronesian island, but the deeper they dug, the less sense it made. The structures bore no signs of bombardment, no sign of retreating forces. No papers, no footprints, no bodies. Only this eerily pristine ruin and an underlying hum that reverberated beneath the earth like the low breath of a slumbering beast. Lieutenant Rei Nakamura adjusted her spectacles and crouched beside a scorched crater behind the base, running a gloved hand through the blackened soil. It was glassy, fused by temperatures far beyond what even naval artillery could produce. "This isn't German, sir," she said quietly, her voice struggling to lift above the wind. "Not entirely." Hayato raised an eyebrow. He had always admired Rei's mind, the way it sliced through problems like a katana through silk. Brilliant, unconventional, and dangerously curious. A rare combination in an officer, especially in the Imperial Navy. "The signals we intercepted," Rei continued, rising to her feet, "they weren't Morse. Not even ciphers. The waveforms were layered, as if someone, or something, was trying to imitate our communications. Poorly." That word lingered. Something. Officially, Japan had joined the Great War in 1914 to assist the Allies, striking at German holdings in the Pacific. But unofficially, Hayato's detachment had been sent here to do more than seize ports. His orders had been coded and sparse, hinting at reports from German scientists before the war, strange findings in the oceanic depths, something recovered from a meteor strike a decade prior. Most in Tokyo dismissed it as myth. Hayato had not. They descended into the bunker under moonlight. The entrance was hidden beneath a false floor in the operations room, guarded not by locks, but by a biometric scanner that no longer worked. It took Rei 3 hours and a homemade battery to bypass it. What waited below was no German installation. The chamber was circular, perfectly smooth, as if carved by a molten sphere. Along the walls, veins of pulsing blue light ran like capillaries through obsidian. A central pillar rose from the floor, humming softly with a rhythm like breath. Alive, or nearly so. Rei moved toward it as if in trance. "Stop!" Hayato ordered, his voice low but sharp. She paused. "It's not dangerous. Not now." "How do you know?" She touched her temple. "I don't. But it's old, damaged, waiting." "For what?" Rei didn't answer. Instead, she pointed to the ceiling. Strange symbols glowed there, evolving patterns of geometry that pulsed faster as they watched. Then, without warning, the pillar flared to life. A projection sprang into the air, a map, spinning in 3 dimensions. Stars bloomed like fireflies, constellations rearranging themselves in ways that defied logic. In the center, marked in deep red, was Earth. A mechanical voice echoed in the chamber, neither German nor Japanese. "Third system incursion, signal integrity compromised, reroute protocols pending, warning, quadrant contaminated, entities inbound." The words, translated somehow, hung in the air like smoke. Hayato's hand found the grip of his service pistol, though he knew it would do no good here. "What is this?" Rei's voice trembled. "It's a warning. This was a forward outpost. Maybe German scientists found it. Or maybe they were just caught in the middle. But this message isn't for us." The projection collapsed in on itself, the chamber darkening. Silence returned, heavy and ancient. Hayato turned away, mind racing. He had a decision to make, and quickly. If this alien structure was real, if it posed a threat, Japan had a choice: share it with its European allies or keep it secret and prepare alone. Neither option sat comfortably. Both reeked of consequences far beyond one war one empire. Back on the surface, the stars had begun to wheel over the horizon. Hayato looked out at the ocean, where a Japanese cruiser waited beyond the reef, unaware of what slept beneath the island's surface. "We bury this," he said. Ray looked at him sharply. "You mean, we seal the entrance? Send a coded report to Tokyo, eyes only. I'll not have the British or Americans getting hold of this." "They're our allies," she said carefully. "Today, maybe," Hayato replied. "But someday, this thing will matter more than any alliance." Ray hesitated, then nodded. She understood what he feared, what they both did. Whatever had spoken through the chamber wasn't dead. It was waiting, watching, and it had noticed Earth. As the first rays of dawn broke over the Pacific, Hayato gave one last look at the bunker's hidden entrance before they began to seal it with concrete and steel. He didn't believe in omens, but he believed in preparation. And somewhere in his gut, a cold certainty had taken root. This war was not the one they would be remembered for. The snow in Hokkaido came early that year, cloaking the hills around the research outpost in silence, as profound as the secrets buried within. Inside the underground facility, fluorescent lights buzzed faintly above steel corridors that twisted like veins, feeding into a single chamber where Lieutenant Rei Nakamura bent over a tangled lattice of glowing wires and crystalline cores. She hadn't slept in 36 hours. The alien device, what remained of it, had resisted every effort at dissection, but Rei wasn't trying to take it apart anymore. She was trying to understand it. The probe's memory core was corrupted, partially destroyed, but not inert. It responded to stimuli in irregular pulses, like a brain half awake and confused. Her latest interface, a patchwork of vacuum tubes and rotary dials, flickered to life with a soft chime. "Third system incursion, recalibrating protocols, secondary relay active," the machine intoned, its voice more coherent than it had been weeks ago. A subtle shift. Ray leaned closer, her voice almost a whisper. "Can you understand me?" There was no direct reply, only a brief flicker of starlight across the device's inner dome. It was learning her, just as she was learning it. Behind her, Commander Hayato Ishikawa entered the lab. His uniform was pressed, his expression harder than it had been on the island. He said little these days, speaking only when necessary, his thoughts buried beneath layers of strategy and growing unease. "You've made progress," he said without preamble. Ray nodded. "The device is adapting. I think it's rebuilding fragments of the original Kareth signal, using our logic patterns." "And what does it say?" "That we were never meant to find it. Earth isn't a target, it's a marker, a fallback. If the Kareth were to lose their war, they had protocols to reseed their species using hidden outposts like this one." Hayato's jaw clenched. "Colonization. Not in the way you think. More like inheritance. The probe believes the Kareth have already lost. Something worse is out there, and it's still coming." He folded his arms. "We need to destroy it." "No," Ray said sharply, standing. "If we shut it down, we lose our only translator, our only guide. To what? To an interstellar war we can't even see?" "To the truth," she said, her voice rising. "This isn't just about Japan anymore. This is about Earth's place in the galaxy. If we're being watched, if something is coming, we have to understand it before it's too late." He didn't argue. That worried her more than anything. Outside the research facility, Japan moved forward under the illusion of peace. The Imperial Navy, bolstered by their success in the Pacific, grew bolder. Western diplomats had begun pressing Japan for transparency about its wartime activities, especially after a German U-boat was mysteriously destroyed near the Philippines with no plausible explanation. What they didn't know, and what Hayato would never allow them to know, was that the submarine had been hit by a beam of focused energy fired from a secret weapon built using fragments of the alien probe. It had been a test, a successful one. The internal divide among Japan's leadership deepened. Some wanted to use the technology to assert dominance in Asia, viewing it as a divine gift. Others, a smaller circle, including Hayato, believed secrecy was paramount, not out of fear of war, but out of fear of discovery. If they could see the stars, it stood to reason the stars could see them. Ray found herself increasingly isolated. Her warnings went largely unheeded outside the walls of her lab. And yet, she persisted. She had begun building a device not for communication, but for listening. The idea terrified her. What if the Kareth were not alone? What if their enemies were still active? But ignorance, she argued, was a greater risk. The night the signal came through was quiet, deceptively so. A low hum filled the lab, followed by a shift in the atmosphere, as if the air itself had become denser. The device projected a field of rotating symbols across the walls, cascading into coherent language. Compliance pending. Vessel en route. Confirm biohost viability. RAI's breath caught. They've found us. She ran to the communications console and triggered the emergency alert. Hayato arrived minutes later, his coat dusted with snow, his expression unreadable as she replayed the message. He listened in silence, then turned toward the viewing window where the snow fell in soft drifts against the glass. How long? He asked. Days. Maybe hours. Do they know we're not the Kareth? She hesitated. They might not care. He nodded slowly. Then we prepare. Outside, the wind picked up, howling like the cry of a thing ancient and cold. Inside, Ray turned back to the probe, her fingers trembling, as she activated the long-range disruptor relay. If they were coming, she would make sure Earth wouldn't go quietly. They would be ready, or they would be remembered. The sky over Hokkaido fractured like glass at dawn. Where once clouds drifted lazily, now an immense tear shimmered across the horizon, silver, jagged and humming with unnatural energy. Civilians below stared upward in mute disbelief. Crows fled inland. The static in the air was so thick it tasted like blood and lightning. Inside the mountain facility, Commander Hayato Ishikawa stood before a wall of monitors as red alerts screamed across every channel. Satellites blinked out one by one, jammed or annihilated. A single ship had emerged from the breach. It wasn't large, not by human standards, no bigger than a destroyer, but its presence pressed against the world like a weight on the chest of the planet itself. They're scanning us, Rei Nakamura said, her voice low, hands flying over the console. Not for weapons, for compatibility. Hayato's brow furrowed. Explain. Ray turned, eyes wide and ringed with exhaustion. The Kareth made us, or modified us, just enough to serve as vessels. That ship is looking for a genetic match. If it finds one... She didn't finish. She didn't need to. Hayato looked past her, at the dormant core of the alien device. It pulsed now like a heartbeat, responding to the proximity of its makers, or their enemies. We have to stop it from making contact. Ray stepped in front of him. Wait, there's a chance we can communicate, explain what we are, that we're not a threat. They didn't come here to negotiate. A tremor ran through the mountain. Dust drifted from the ceiling. Ray turned back to the console. The ship above was cycling through frequencies, trying to unlock every transmission protocol the Kareth had ever encoded. Then it found one. A voice flooded the chamber, deep, mechanical, ancient. You are deviation. You are mutation. You are unfit. Ray paled. They know. Hayato made the decision. We trigger the failsafe. Ray's eyes widened in disbelief. That will destroy the probe. The ship may retaliate. He stared at the trembling dome, its soft blue glow fading into a hard white strobe. We're already at war. Together they entered the control codes. A minute-long countdown appeared on the screen, ticking down with terrible finality. 59, 58. The ground above split open. Chasms tore through the snow. The Kareth enemy vessel descended lower, its form warping the air around it. A silhouette too alien to describe, like angles bent in directions reality refused to accept. 30 seconds. Ray pressed her hand against the crystal interface, whispering a plea, perhaps to the ship, perhaps to whatever spark of Kareth intelligence still lingered in the probe. The voice returned, garbled but desperate. Incorrect. Recalibrating. Human variance. Not hostile. Hayato froze. What was that? Ray looked up, tears in her eyes. It recognized us. Something. It saw something in me. In us. 10 seconds. We have to stop the detonation, she said. Hayato didn't move. The weight of command bore down on him like never before. If you're wrong, then we're gone either way, she said. But if I'm right, we might not be alone in this universe after all. 5 seconds. He made the call. Hayato slammed his palm onto the override panel. The countdown froze at 3. The ship above shuddered, its edges blurring. Lights along its hull shifted from blood red to green. Slowly it began to retreat, rising back toward the breach in the sky. Ray collapsed to her knees, shaking with relief. The voice came one last time, softer now. You are anomaly, protected. Seed remains. Then it was gone. The breach closed like a zipper over the atmosphere, leaving behind only clear morning sky and silence. Days passed. The world governments were told it was a weather anomaly, a solar flare. Some even believed it. Hayato knew the truth, and so did Ray. The probe had gone dark, but not dead. They had buried it deep beneath reinforced concrete and lead shielding in a chamber designed to be forgotten. Earth wasn't ready. Not yet. In the stillness of his office, Hayato stared out over the snowy ridgeline and wondered how many others like that ship were watching, waiting. They had not come to conquer, not this time. They had come to test. And Earth, by the smallest of margins, had passed.